What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the first weekly episode of Grounded, and it's kind of a mini series that Aisha and I went back and forth on. We want to be able to provide as much value to the audience as possible because we get a lot of DMs, messages, text, calls asking, "Hey, how do you guys value land? How do you guys wholesale land? What do I need to look for? What do I need to do?" And so we want to be able to give back a little bit in our business and in our time. And we understand that wholesaling land isn't a hot commodity. A lot of people don't do it. And we also understand that not everyone does it full time like we do. You know, you're out there hustling, you're out there trying to find deals, you're talking to agents, you're talking to sellers, you're talking to everyone. And sometimes land deals just get thrown in your lap and your curiosity spikes. You've never done a land deal. If you're like me, the first time a land deal came to me, I was like, what the hell do I do with this thing, right? And so we want to be able to help you in those situations, whether you do it full-time or part-time or whatever it is. So we just want to take a deep dive. But first, I wanted to talk about a little bit why we got into land rather than property. Funny enough, Aisha and I met wholesaling a property together. We actually both started wholesaling, traditional, single-family real estate, residential real estate. And, we both had success at it. We both closed deals, all that fun stuff. But as the more we kind of got into it and, we started working a lot more together, ultimately building a partnership for our company, which now we own Unwind Investments, we just saw it was best fit and more aligned towards our end goal. And so we wanted to ultimately become developers, not flippers. And so we figured it'd be the best way for us to learn how to properly underwrite, evaluate, network, all that fun stuff for our future goals of ultimately developing, land. And so that's kind of why we jumped on I can't say the land bandwagon because it's not really a thing right now. But that was just a quick breakdown of why we're into land full time. And so recently we've been getting a lot, how do you guys truly evaluate, lots and parcels of land and all of that fun stuff? And the truth is, it's not easy. There's that stigma around wholesaling land that, it's easier. It's just a plot of dirt. You don't have to factor in how much the roof costs. And I got to put this vanity in. Do I want granite, whatever, all that stuff. But in my opinion, and I probably can speak for Aisha on this, I don't think it's easier. I actually think it's harder. But I think it's because of how we go about doing our business. And so there's two types of offer methods that I call. And a lot of people hear about percent-based offers, right? The kind of the traditional that when you get into land or you hear about land, people are saying, just offer 15 to 20% of the resale value of a new construction. And that may work in some cases. And more often than not, you're probably going to be pretty close. But as the market adjusts and all this different stuff, we don't do percent-based offers. We actually deep dive into every deal that we come across, or at least qualifies. We do everything off market too. So it's a little bit different for a lot of people in that regard. But again, we don't do percent-based offers. And the reason for that being is we want to understand, like I said earlier, how to properly evaluate the dirt or the land. And so when you do a percent-based offer, that works if you're doing like a direct mail campaign, because especially if you're sending blind offers, you kind of you don't have time. You're not going to be able to underwrite every single lot or piece of land and send out 3,000 mail. Sure, you could. Might take you all year, but you could definitely do it. So that's where the percent-based offer is way more common. For what we do, we cold call. We're to TTP, baby, Brent Daniels. We stick to the nuts and the bolts and the roots of this whole thing, man. We simply cold call and drive for dollars. And so that's how we find our deals, which allows us to be able to underwrite these deals in a timely, or not so much timely, more effectively rather than efficiently. And so we get a deep dive and learn that stuff. And so hopefully, I really hope that makes sense. And I would love to go more into that, but I don't want to spend this whole episode talking about those type of offers. Why is land? Why do people think land is easier than property? I don't know, but I think it's because of that percent based. Here's the thing about land is there's different, just like when you're wholesaling real estate, like single or residential real estate, there's different types of builders, there's different types of buyers, there's different types of developers. Those of you that are wholesaling traditional residential, there's a flipper, there's a fixer, buy and hold investor, there's guys that only do multifamily stuff. There's all kinds of different niches in residential real estate. It's the same thing with land. It's not like you just go find a plot of dirt and every developer is going to build on that piece of dirt. And that's where we're going to get into a little bit in this episode on the nuts and bolts of why that is and how to properly at least have a very simple idea of what it takes to look at a piece of dirt and say, okay, this is what I need to look at. Maybe where this potential development aligns or what direction I need to go for what type of buyer. So I'll start with there's about 4 or 5 general types of land, which is residential infill lot or residential type land, which is your little family duplex, rural, small, multi-sex will go on, agricultural land. Aisha, what do you got? I know you're about to jump in.
Yeah, it sounds like I don't know if anyone else out there can hear it, but the audio sounded a little wonky. It's fading in and out. Guys, if you are hearing, if Tanner's mic sounds weird, if you throw a comment or something up there, just it'll let us know. I just want to make sure that you guys aren't hearing it the same way I am. I can still hear you, Tanner. It just kind of sounds like you're a little underwater at times. So, but you're good, man. Fire away.
Yeah, I just moved my mic.
By the way, hi, everyone. Thanks for giving me a chance to say hi to the people, Tanner. Good Lord. Man.
There you go.
You get this guy talking about land and he'll just go.
Yeah, hey, look, I no bullshit. I'm just blunt. Like, let's just get into it. I want to talk land. And those of you that I have talked with, I see Remy. You guys know that I can talk your ear off with this stuff. So, but anyways, and I don't want to spend too much time on the different types of land, but just understand that there is a variety. And so what we specifically, what our target is, we really like infill lots, residential lots. We don't do rural, which is, you're talking 100 acres out in BFE. We avoid all of that. And the reason for that being is it, again, doesn't align with our end goal. Those rural parcels, you're not really going to have any development if it's way out in the middle of nowhere. And so it just doesn't align. It's for us, and it's that simple. And so we like to really focus on what we want to do and where our company's vision and goals are. And so for that reason, when I talk about the valuation of land, this is going to be really simple in terms of it's really infill lots, residential type properties, which again, that's what most of you guys come across. At least when we get DMs, it's very rare that we just get a super rural in the middle of nowhere parcel, but it does happen. And so for those that come across infill lots, residential lots where homes can be built, that's where we specialize in. At least that's where we target heavily. So starting with that, there's a few key things that you need to look at for underwriting properly, or at least for paying attention to before you make an offer, maybe even during your due diligence period with builders. But the few things you need to pay attention for is the first and foremost is the utilities. When you're looking at a lot, you need to know if that lot has access to utilities, whether that's which is city water, sewer, or potentially septic, depending on where you're at in the country, electricity, natural gas. Those are like your 4, obviously, main, and I believe only, actually, now I think about it, utilities. Sewer and septic, if you're in Florida like we are, that's the biggest one. Because typically, again, when you're dealing with residential lots, it's usually already in a developed area, meaning it's going to have water, it's going to have electricity, it's going to have gas. But sewer lines are really the ones that you need to pay attention to, because that's where a lot of money can get skewed for a builder. If they have to pull a sewer line to your property because it's in a street 2 blocks over, then you're talking big bucks. There's a lot of money involved in that, and it's a lot of time and lengthy process. And so that's why we like to focus on the utilities almost first and foremost before anything else. Get that question out of the way. See if a seller or an agent knows what's going on with the utilities, and then we can really start to work from there. And so the biggest thing, and I could talk 30 minutes on this topic alone, but the biggest thing between sewer and septic is pretty important as well. Just because they're 2 different things, don't think they're equal. They're both costly for one. Septic tanks usually are around 10 grand just to install. Now, obviously that varies depending on the company and whatnot. But the reason that that's so important between sewer and septic is in most areas and most jurisdictions, at least in our market, septic's, it's hard to build what you want to build on a septic tank. I'll say that, because a septic tank requires a certain amount of land it has to take up and all this kind of stuff. But rather, when you tap into a sewer line, you can build whatever you want. And so that's why we focus on finding that information out almost first and foremost, because that's what builders want to know. I work dispositions in our company. Isham is the head of acquisitions, closer, or whatever you want to call it. Isham hammers down the phones on these sellers, and then passes this stuff on to me. And then this is where I do my work, which is understanding all the utilities, talking to builders. And so builders, that's the biggest question they ask me when we have a deal. Hey, is there sewer? That's the first thing I usually get. And so that's why I wanted to point that out. One of the next biggest thing is zoning. Zoning actually can be found on a local GIS. And so I want to show you guys what that looks like real quick. So your local GIS map, even maybe some property appraisers, depending on your county and kind of what software and whatnot they use, is going to have your zoning. Zoning is important because you need to know what can and cannot be built on a lot, because that ultimately affects the value. If your property is zoned R1, and in most areas, R1 zoning means just a single family property, which is what that one stands for, one unit. That lot has a cap at what it can be, sold for, essentially, to a builder. But then you get into the difference between, say, an R1, a residential lot, versus a commercial lot. Commercial lots, it's like the Wild West, not going to lie to you, because it just solely comes down to what a developer, and I'm talking like a big boy developer, people that put Chick-fil-A's on lots, oil change places, Walmarts, whatever. It's really whatever they want to pay. So commercial, that's why we kind of stay away from commercial a little bit, because it literally is the Wild West. And so back to the zoning, zoning, I want to use an example before I show everyone what the GIS map looks like, or at least how to find it and kind of maneuver through it. I want to use an example of an R2. So R2 and R market, stands for 2 units, per acre, essentially. Now, per acre can be skewed depending on if it's whatever jurisdiction, if it's in a certain city, whatever. So I don't want to get too crazy, but I'll just use R2 for an example. So at most you can put a duplex because it allows 2 units. So why is that important? Because one builder, you may get your property under contract or get your lot under contract, go to your builders with this. And one of those builders may only want to build a spec home on that lot, right? But you take it to the builder next door and he's like, no, I'll put a duplex and turn it into a long-term rental. Well, who's going to pay more? The duplex. Why? Because he's holding it long-term. And so that's why it's important to understand the zoning and what the best use for that lot is, or that plot of dirt. Because again, I want to go back to residential, wholesale, traditional. When you're marketing a traditional single-family residential property and you go to a fix and flipper and you take that same bid to a buy and hold investor, who typically pays more? The buy and hold investor. Why? Because they don't have to eat so much cost up front. It's the same thing with development. That's why it's important to understand your zoning and what's the best use for that land. And then the last thing before I jump into the GIS is understand flood zones and your wetlands. And the flood zones and wetlands are going to be able to be found on your GIS map for the most part. I don't think I've ever ran across a GIS map that does not have a flood zone or wetlands map of some sort, where you can identify if there's potentially any wet spots on that lot or parcel. And why is that important? So flood zones, it can affect the value depending on what the flood zone is. And what I mean by the value is what a builder is going to want to pay for that lot. Because if it's in, like flood zone X is what the whole country uses, which determines there's no flood zone. So in a 100-year FEMA flood zone, the chances of that lot flooding for whatever reason, whether it's a storm, massive rainfall for like 6 months straight, the chance of that lot actually flooding and being wet is like a 0.01% or something crazy like that. So it's just high and dry is what you call it. Once you get up to the next levels or there's like a graph, you can go on FEMA flood zone and it'll pull up a graph and show you all the different ones. But once you get above X is when it can start getting skewed in terms of what a builder is going to look at, because if it's in a flood zone, there's usually restrictions that the county or a city is going to require that builder to use on material. He's going to have to elevate that property maybe 3 extra feet, and fill dirt is not cheap. And so fill dirt is one of the other things that builders have to factor in on these lots. But I don't want to dive into too much of that stuff. So those are some of the few key things I just wanted to point out before anything, just so you guys are kind of aware of what to at least look for. If you see something, if you're doing on-market deals and you're looking at a listing and you're looking at the description of what the agent has for that lot, if you see something about a flood zone, if you see something about utilities in the description or zoning, I wanted to mention those things because that's stuff you need to pay attention to if you're reading through a description of what an agent has. That should trigger your brain like, okay, I need to read it, maybe read that sentence twice or whatever it is. And so now I really want to show you guys what a GIS map, at least our county for our main market, what it looks like and what you can kind of expect. And again, every GIS map is different. So I was telling Aisha before the show started, it's funny because a lot of times when people send us deals and I take a look at it and it's in a county or a city that, we don't do really business in, but I'm willing to look. Sometimes it takes me a long time just to figure out how the damn GIS map works and maneuver it because they can be extremely tricky. So let's hop over, share my screen. So the first thing I wanted to show is when you go to, let's actually start with Google, huh? So Google, I'm literally going to type in, our county or our market, Bay County GIS map. And it's usually going to be the first one that pops up. And so boom, takes you to the GIS map. Now, obviously it's going to show you your map. You plug in whatever address or parcel ID you have. So let's use, we'll use a recent deal, 4406 Cato Road. Give me 1 second here. And I just want to show you guys what this is going to look like. So it takes you to your lot percent, essentially, right? And so now every GIS map is also going to have a legend or a key of some sort to where you can kind of filter certain things out. If you want to see just what the zoning is, GIS maps are going to allow you to see your zoning. So you're going to click on land use and zoning. Usually tells you pretty clear, boom, it's going to highlight. It's going to tell me what that zoning is, right? So R2BC. If you're new to land and you're no clue, you're like, what the heck does R2BC mean, right? Again, as I was saying earlier, this determines what can be built on that lot. And there are restrictions and guidelines that builders have to follow, but for now, just know this. And so whenever you see your zoning R2BC, and I should tell me if I'm doing a terrible job of explaining this. First thing I'm going to do is go to R2 Bay County zoning. Why? Because that's the zoning. This is our county that we're in, and I want to see what zoning. So every county or every city is going to have a land development regulations, which we'll explain, and I'll show you. It's going to explain exactly what your zoning means. So I'm going to search down here, residential zones. R, what does that mean? Residential. That's, it's pretty simple and pretty dry and cut. And so I'm going to see, okay, boom, R said R2. So I'm going to click on this, whatever. I'm going to find, okay, so here's R1, scroll down, and just like that, boom, R2. Okay, cool. So now I can see what the county is going to allow me to build on that lot. Again, I don't want to confuse anyone. I don't want to overwhelm anyone, but this is how we underwrite and evaluate deals. And so I know it can be confusing at times. That's why we're here. That's why we want to help. And hopefully showing this will kind of take some of that stress away, at least of somewhat how to maneuver and find what information you need and what to look for.
Look, guys, this just like when, if for any of the our fellow real estate investors that are out there that maybe, are wholesaling properties and whatnot, you please understand that just like when you are learning to comp houses, it's not like you watched a video like this and you're good. You know what I mean? Like, this stuff takes practice. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of discovery. It's a lot of, oh, I thought I knew something, but I found out something else. Or, oh, okay, so it's different here than it is here. The same thing applies, essentially with land. And here's one, if this is any sort of comforting information for you, I want to leave you with this. When it comes to residential real estate properties, like physical, like a house, there's appraisal rules, right? There's like, there are people that it's their job to determine the value of that asset, of that house, right? They're called appraisers, property appraisers. Well, like in the land game, it's not, there's really not such a thing. There's not a person that you can call and say, hey, can you come evaluate my land and give me a price for it? And so what people are doing is they're calling real estate agents essentially and saying, hey, what do you think I can get from my lot for the people that are listing? And then the agent comes out and they do what they're taught to do essentially. Well, I wouldn't say they're taught, but what their broker, probably taught them to do, because they definitely don't learn how to comp in real estate school. But they'll look for comps, right? They'll look for other lots in the area that are comparable that's sold. Well, here's the challenge when it comes to land. Well, land, 100% of the value of land, 100% is based on what a buyer is willing to pay for that land. That's it. That's what determines the value of land, is what someone's willing to pay for it. There's no appraisal company. There's no, like when it comes to auto, MSRP, there's none of that. There's no minimum, there's no maximum. You can charge whatever you want. It's 100% what a builder is willing to pay for, or what a buyer is willing to pay for. So if you have that knowledge, then you just reverse engineer it a little bit, So look, either you're an investor or you're an end user. I don't know who else would buy land or property. You're either going to use it or you're going to invest in it. End users, you guys know this, will pay more, right? They just will. They're willing to pay more. They're able to pay more. Investors, we can't do that. We need the difference to be able to do what we need to do. We need a little bit of delta in there. We need to be able to make money on this thing that we're doing. So when it comes to land, just be careful with comping with other properties, because you may be using a comp that was bought by an end user, which they'll pay more. They're willing to pay more. So if you're using that as your comp, just be careful. So that's just something to think about. Using other land prices to determine your land price, or what you want to try and acquire this for, before you disposition it to us or a builder or a buyer or something like that. Just be careful knowing that. So I just wanted to throw that out there really quick. You really want to begin with the end in mind. If you are looking to acquire a piece of raw land that's out in rural, BFE America, just know that you're not going to want to price that for a builder, because a builder's probably not going to drive all the way out there just to build a house out in the middle of nowhere. So that's one of the reasons why Tanner was saying we stick to infill lots. Infill lot is a lot that's in a neighborhood. Probably has a house to the left, probably has a house to the right. You probably have one on your street. There's infill lots all over the place. So that's where we focus on. That's our bread and butter, because we know we can go to a builder and say, hey, what can you put there? Okay, cool. We know that they can put that there. So we know that this is what we can sell them that land for. And that's what we're going to go over in this video is how to determine the value. Like, what are all the things that we are putting into consideration when we're coming up with the price?
No, dude, you're a hell of a coach, by the way, or a teacher. Your communication skills are super effective. Yeah, so to piggyback on what Aishan was saying, it's important to start with the end in mind, which is why, focus on the zoning, what can be built there. And then, like Aishan was saying, we work really closely with our builders. We don't blast out deals, when we get stuff under contract, simply because that's not how our model, our company model, is based out of. Again, we really take the time to properly evaluate deals because we know what our builders want. And what does that look like? What do you mean, what do your builders want? Well, starters, it means price per square foot. What's it costing our builders to build a spec home? A spec home is a home that's equivalent to a fix and flip, just with a new build date on it. Essentially, that builder is going to buy a lot, put a home on it, or build a home on it, and turn around and resell it, just like a flip. So when you hear spec home, just know that's essentially what that is. It's a fix and flip, but with new construction. That's all it is. They're revamping the dirt. Previously, that was there. But we start with the price per square foot to build. So what does that look like? So I'm going to call a builder. Hey, Mrs. Builder, get to know what they're looking for. Get to know the areas that they want. So, hey, what zip codes are you buying in? What areas of town are you buying in? What areas are you avoiding? Are you only looking to build spec builds? These are some of the questions I'm asking builders when I hop on the phone with them. And then I'm asking, hey, they're like, yeah, we're looking for land. Yeah, we build da 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 da. Okay, great. Hey, what's your build cost? What does that look like? Price per square foot. You're either going to get usually one of two answers, which is, hey, here's my build cost, $150 a square foot. Perfect. And I'll explain why that's important here in a second. The other answer is, hey, my wife handles the build cost. It's usually one of the two I get, or I don't know, because some builders just don't know. They don't pay attention enough. They subcontract everything out. They get a bill at the end of the build and say, hey, here's what you owe the contractors, and then they sell it. And so they're just more or less there just to hang out and make the designs, build, strategize. But when it physically comes to building, that's why a lot of builders don't actually know their build costs, because they subcontract so much stuff out. But anyways, back to the price per square foot. Why is that important? Because that's how we actually run our offers. So we'll look at, if I know one of my builders, we get a lot under contract, or we're underwriting a lot before we even make an offer on it. Hey, I know this is X area. I know this would be perfect for one of our builders. I know already the builder in mind. Now, from previous conversations I've had with him, I know what he builds. I know what his build costs are. Hey, he's at 150 a square foot. He's got a plan. And by plan, I mean a build plan. Builders usually, typically, especially spec home builders, are going to kind of reuse the same plans. At least they may change one or two minor things, but for the most part, it's pretty consistent on what they like to build. So 150 a square foot, they want to build a 2,000 square foot home. Perfect. What do you do with that? You're like, okay, great. That's great information, Tanner. But now what we do is we figure out what the sold comps for properties, like what the average construction is going for. So if I go to Zillow, and you open up Zillow and you type in filters of 2022 or newer builds sold, and you see that within a mile radius per se, that all the homes are selling for $300,000. You see what the price per square foot is. Say they're selling at $250 a square foot. And so I know, as long as our builders essentially are under that $250 a square foot on their resale, typically they can make some money on it. Now, here's where the key part is. And again, this is why I like to think that we're different than everyone else in terms of how we truly evaluate land, is we factor in our builders' needs first and foremost. And what do I mean by that? Is we want to make sure that even after we assign the deal, after we make money, that our builders make money, and they make the money that they want to make. What does that mean, and what does that look like? Most builders on spec builds are going to want to make a bare minimum 20% return of their money, 20% return. So if they sell a home for $400,000, use your calculator, type in 400, put in 400,000 times 0.2. That's the gross ROI that they're looking to make, plain and simple, right? And so we actually use a calculator, and I'm sure we'll break it out at some point, not on this episode, but the calculator will really get to show you guys very simply. I mean, it breaks it down super easily. We just have to plug in a few numbers, and bada bing, bada boom, it spits out information back at us. And that's really how we come up with our offers and our values. And so, again, piggybacking on Isham with keep the builders in mind first. That's my advice to anyone that's getting into land. If you come across land or come across a lot, and you think this would be great for a single family home, go call builders in your local market. Go look who's building homes in that vicinity, in that area, in that neighborhood. Give them a call and say, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Builder, are you looking for another lot? They'll tell you yes or no pretty quickly. And I don't want to get into too much on the disposition side, so I'll keep it more to the evaluating of the land. So based on that information with the builders and where to start, the few key softwares and programs, I say softwares and programs like you have to pay for them. They're free. But just to mention, use your GIS map. Use your local property appraiser. Your property appraiser is your best friend, really. It's our best friend in our business. I probably spend more time looking at a damn property appraiser map on a daily basis than anything else. Like genuinely, like I'm on that thing. So get to know whatever county you're in, whatever jurisdiction you're in, city. Get to know that software. Man, I'm drawing a blank. The key items during due diligence. And so I've got a lot of questions recently. Hey, do we keep the same terms on a land deal as we do with a residential property? Absolutely not. And what do I mean by terms? I mean under contract, right? You're going to an agent, you're going to someone and say, hey, right now, most of the time with single family property, I see most is a 10 to a 15-day inspection period, right? So you have 10 to 15 days of doing your due diligence before and assigning that property or that residential single family home, 10 to 15 days. But on land, it's different. Good luck. Because here's at the end of the day, there's a few very, very, at minimal, a builder is going to most likely want to get a survey completed before closing, a boundary survey. And so that survey is just going to show the builder exactly the outlines of that lot. Survey company will go shoot some lasers and get the basic boundaries to make sure that that lot is as big as the property appraiser or Zillow and everything says it is. And so from there, what's going to happen is those surveys right now for us in our market typically take anywhere from 2 to 3 weeks from start to finish. I call the survey company, hey, I need a survey on this lot. How soon can you get it done? Right now, it's usually 2 to 3 weeks, right? So right there, if you're even talking 2 weeks, that's 14 days before a builder is most likely going to even want to make their mind up of whether they want to purchase that lot. If you're on a 10 or 15-day inspection period, that's your whole inspection period. You're shooting in the dark. So for us, our minimum that we have on inspection periods is a 30-day, which we call it a feasibility period in land. And so we have a 30-day minimal feasibility period, even for just a basic single infill lot where a spec build is going to go. Because there's a few steps that builders most likely want to take prior to closing on that deal, again, which is a survey.
Let me jump in real quick just to give you guys a little more insight around that, because I know that when I was on the property side of the house, like, houses, you needed your inspection period to essentially get some photos done, but you also use that time to kind of shop your deal, right? It's different on land, because here the beauty of it is we truly can reach out to builders first. Our builders are happy to talk to us. They're not like a lot of flippers and buyers where you kind of, they're just like, look, just send me deals and I'll decide. And then over time you build a relationship, and then you really find what their buy box. Usually most won't just take the time right away to tell you their buy box, but builders are different. They're not getting hit up by people that want to be a land acquisition source for them. So they're usually like really open to hearing what you have to say. So that being said, when you're talking to a seller and you're trying to get this property under contract, you're learning, you're asking them the questions about the utilities. Hey, what's the situation with the utilities there? Is it on septic or sewer? Oh, it's on sewer. Okay, great. Is the sewer just in the street, or has it been brought onto the lot yet? Like, these are all really important things to learn. But it's just, it's something that you really want to keep in mind and keep it simple. I lost my train of thought. I forget where I was going at with what's that?
He said it happens to the best of us. You're good.
Oh, well, anyways, I'm sure you'll say something that'll trigger where I was going with all this. I started talking about utilities. I'm like, man, let me go into my acquisition mode. No, so utilities, and then you want to ask about survey. That's what we're talking about: inspection period, feasibility. And so when it comes to the feasibility, you do not have to worry about a seller needing to get this done quick. The beautiful thing about land is people aren't desperate. We're not talking with people that have to sell their land. It's great when you get a motivated land seller. Don't get me wrong. When you get on the phone with someone and you caught them at the right time, and their daughter's getting married or something like that, and they probably forgot about that lot, and you make them an offer and they're like, oh yeah, that's right. Those are great. For the most part, people that own land own it for two reasons. They're either going to invest, they're using it as an investment tool to sell later, or they're going to build on it. Like, why else would people own land unless it was given to them through what's it called when someone in your family, inheritance? Any of that stuff, divorce or anything like that. Sometimes people do acquire land and they're like, I don't know what to do with it. And those again are lucky calls. But when it comes to feasibility or inspection periods, don't worry about asking for 30 days. That's normal. Like, it is not a big deal. I ask for 30, 40, 45, and 60-day timeframes all the time. They're cool with that because they're usually in no rush for that money. So just something to think about. Don't be worried about asking for a 30-day. We need time. The more time that you can give yourself, the better. And it's always a good caveat to tell them, hey, look, because this is a raw infill lot, because there's a bunch of trees on it and whatnot, we may need to get a soil sample. We don't know yet. We may need to do some stuff to this. And so until we get the survey done and can really get in there, we won't know. And so just to play it safe, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, let's say 45 to 60 days for a feasibility period. We may be able to get this thing done in 2 to 3 weeks. And if that's the case, then we can close, a week later and we're good to go. So I always give them like a big range, but then let them know, hey, we can close sooner because we do it all the time. And the majority of our deals are closed quicker than what the seller thought we would do it at. So.
Yeah, and a few things, this is more touching on the acquisition side, is a few things to mention is in land, there's not so much emotion, as Aishan was kind of pointing out, it's very transactional, which is good for me because I'm a transactional person kind of, so Aishan knows that. But it's unique, especially when you flip over from, property to land, for that reason. Just be wary though, in land too, it's so important to get lien searches back and efficiently done. So if you work closely with the title company and, title search, because more often than not, so a lot of people don't realize that land gets quit claimed a lot. So what does that mean? For those that don't know what a quit claim is, it's essentially transferring the deed, transferring title without a title company. And so why is that a big deal? Because if there is a lien, like someone didn't pay taxes in 1980 on a lot, but it's been quit claimed all the way up till now, and someone tries to buy it through a title company now, those taxes are still relevant. So that new buyer or the seller has to essentially pay those taxes from all the way from 1980 because it's never been processed. There's never been a title search done. And we haven't ran into too much of that, luckily, but it is something that I know it happens. It comes up. Quit claims, and I see that, the hairs on the back of my neck go up a little bit. So just don't think about that too hard. I really shouldn't have mentioned that probably because people are like, oh God. But good title company will handle all of that for you. So you're good there. Yeah. So I guess back to properly, I really want to show the calculator because it's going to make life so much easier to explain this stuff. And so actually, you know what? I'm going to do it. For the sake of the people, I'm going to pull up the calculator. And
hey, let's go. Hey, while he's pulling up the calculator, I'm going to just really. So I'm on the acquisition side of the house, right? So my job is, myself and our team. We've got a few other guys that help us in our company that we love to death, and they help us with the acquisition side of things. But nonetheless, my job is to call that seller, see if they're open to selling. Get a little bit the pillars, just like Brent Daniels calls them. We call them the pillars in our business as well. But our pillars are a little bit different. We definitely still want to find out the condition, the timeline, the motivation, and the price. But it's just a little different. Obviously, motivation's a little different. You kind of want to figure that out at the end of the conversation because usually land is very transactional. And right away, they're not looking to discuss anything other than the matter at hand while you're calling. And so condition of the land, that's more so, what we're after. And so we want to know, the utility situation and surveys, right? That's really it. My calls when I'm acquiring, I'm usually asking, hey, so what's the utility situation? I'll deep dive a little bit more into that. Just because I want to know, they'll say it's on sewer. Okay, cool. Is it on the lot or in the street? Okay, blah, blah, blah. Or it's on septic. Okay, great. Do you know how long that septic was installed? No, they usually never know. Some will know. Do you know what kind of septic it is? Because concrete septic lasts for a long time, whereas steel doesn't, it's 15, maybe 20 years. And so there's a lot of, little things like that you'll learn along the way. But you want to find out the utilities, just as much info as you can. A lot of times sellers, they're not aware of the utility situation, but sometimes they are. That and has there been a survey done recently? And outside of that, everything else is just rapport building. And so it's really, I mean, talking to sellers for land is really easy. Just keep in mind though, that there are other wholesalers that are, pulling lists and coming across these people and calling them. So you're not going to be the first one. A lot of times they are annoyed. But if you have your stuff together, and you let them know, hey, look, I'm not calling to make you an offer right away. I'm calling to gather a little bit of information that I couldn't find publicly. Because they'll be like, oh, you do your research on your own. You should have did your research before you called. And that's just because they're so used to people sending them postcards and just calling and saying, hey, crazy lowball offer. So they're really, if you can separate yourself really quickly and in a dramatic way by not doing any of that, by asking them, hey, look, before, we even talk about the numbers, let me ask you a little bit about the lot that I couldn't find publicly, because this could really help our offer. I don't say really help increase our offer. I say really help our offer, because increasing is kind of implied. But it really does. I mean, we can swing, $20K on our ask just based on what they say from the utilities. And so it's really good info to have that stuff. A lot of times we'll get an address sent our way. Hey guys, can you help us with this lot? And it's just an address. It's like, what? What are we supposed to do with this? We need more info. So at a bare minimum, get the utilities and find out if there's been a survey done recently. As far as the zoning goes, that's for you to know. That's for you to find out before you go to pitch that. Don't ask a seller about zoning, because you can find that info on your own. Do not ask a seller about zoning. We talked about that, but I just want to make sure we make that clear. All I really want to know from the seller are the utilities and surveys, because typically everything else can be found publicly. So you want to be a person that does not waste their time, because trust me, landowners do not like their time wasted. So back to you, Tanner.
No, it's all about rapport and trust. Like we've found that, for the most part, as much as it is transactional, the phone calls that you're going to have with sellers, talking about the lot is usually very minimal. There's only so much to talk about a plot of dirt. It's not like a house, right? And so keep that in mind, like Aisham's saying. There's a lot of stuff you don't need to ask. We tried it. It just pisses people off because you feel like you're wasting their time, because it's true. You don't want to ask a seller about zoning because you can go find it in 5 seconds online. So, but outside of that, I'm going to show the calculator for everyone. Okay, cool. You got it. No, you're good. So this is an example of a very, very simplistic method to our madness, I guess is the way to say it, in terms of why we don't use a percent based and why we work from the builder's numbers. And again, I would like to point out, and this is a relative and recent example, is me and Aisham and another one of our team members, Retta, recently went to lunch with one of our builders. And we were talking about, land deals in our market and all this kind of stuff. When you use a percent-based offer method, basically saying, finding a quick comp on Zillow and then going off of that, essentially, we're gonna kick your teeth in our market. We're gonna beat you every time, I promise you. Because there's a lot of, and the reason I say that, I don't say that to intimidate, I don't sound that to sound like a hard ass. It's because our builder he owns a ton of lots, so he gets a lot of calls, he gets a lot of mailers. People are offering $60,000 on a $150,000 lot. But they don't know that because they're going off of percent-based method. We know that, so we beat them every time. And so that's why it's important to understand the builders, your market, and really what they want to build, because every market's so different. And it's hard to give a percent of what a builder wants to pay for a plot of dirt for. So real quick to the calculator. So obviously this is our subject address, whatever. That's the lot that we're underwriting. It's a lot you have under contract, whatever it may be. These are sold comps in the neighborhood. I always try to just stick in the neighborhood. If you have to expand, just think of, again, your comp. When you're comparing 2 single family homes, you're not going to go across a highway. You're not going to use a waterfront house with a house that's, not on a waterfront. Same thing with a lot. You want to keep it very apple to apple, essentially. If you've got a lot that's no waterfront, look at other lots and stuff that aren't. So these are actually not lots. And when we underwrite, we go off of new construction. We don't go off of what other lots sell for because it skews. One could be an end buyer, one could be a developer, right? There's a lot of factors. So we always just, the safest way where we've been the most effective, where we've gotten the best deals, is basically by using what new construction selling for. So after a home is built, what does it sell for? Then we extract that data and use that to make our offers on land. So these are new constructions. Obviously, lot size is self-explanatory. This is what I was talking about earlier. This is what the sold price per square foot is. After the home is built, resold on the market, that's what the price per square foot comes out to. And I'll show you why down here, why that's important. It's important to understand the square footage of the homes that are being built in the area, because usually that cues you in on what builders are wanting to build, what size of homes they're wanting to build. In certain areas, the reason that these homes are 1,150 square feet, because there might be a septic tank on every lot. There's no city sewer. And so that's why all these homes are built the same square footage. So there's usually little keys that can cue you in on what builders are most likely. Sometimes on certain lots, builders don't have a lot of options. Some lots are they can only build a 200 difference of a square foot home, and that's it. And so that's why we look at this. And again, I'll explain below why that's important. Sold price, this is really not as crazy important, but it's nice to know. It is important to understand, because you want to know what the builders are going to be targeting for the resale of a home. A builder's not going to go into this lot. And again, below is really where the meats and potatoes are. And so I'll get into that. But a builder's not going to want to build a home and then try to sell it for $800,000 in this neighborhood, right? Why? Because all the homes are selling in the mid 500s. That wouldn't make sense. The builder's going to lose money. The home's going to sit because he's priced out of the neighborhood, priced out of the consumers that live in that neighborhood.
So Tanner, let me jump in, because I have a feeling that people are wondering, okay, so what's the determining factor? If we are comparing a piece of land and we're using new construction for comps, do I just grab every new construction and throw it in there? Like, how did you pick those four? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, what if there was a cheaper house? What if there's a more expensive house? Like, where did those come from?
Yeah, great question. And I'll pull up Zillow, because you can use Zillow for this. I'll pull up Zillow real quick after breaking this down. And so the reason I use these comps, again, is one, because it's in the neighborhood. It's in the same neighborhood, or at least it's in a very comparable, really close. It might be the neighborhood across the street, but it's very close. Again, I'm not going to look into a gated neighborhood at if there's a new construction gated neighborhood across the street, and the homes are selling for $1 million versus this neighborhood where homes are selling for $500,000. I'm not going to use construction in $1 million neighborhood. I want to be really similar to our neighborhood, the sale prices of the homes in that neighborhood, and all of that. The next thing that I use is I'm looking for the most recent stuff. I will filter out. I want the most recent solds. And I want to put it in order. Usually when I put this calculator together, when I'm underwriting something, I usually put them in order. Why? Because you can sometimes, not all the time, but you can see a trend right here, right? And as so be it, there's a trend. What is that trend? The price per square foot is going down. Why? Because if you notice, we're getting more recent times, interest rates have been going up. That's important because builders have to factor that in. Most builders aren't building with cash. They're going to banks. They're going to lenders, just like a fix and flipper is. They're going and pulling construction loans, and they have to pay interest on those loans. And as the interest rates go up, people have essentially a $500,000 home is not the same as it was a year ago because the interest rates are higher. So an end consumer that may have been able to afford that, I'm not going to go into a honey hole and all that shit actually. So moving on. I will talk about that later if we need to though. Bed bath count, you don't even really need that. I just do it because I like to see what it is. Again, it's good for builders. It's a visual. We share with our builders this calculator. All of our deals that we go under contract with that we're trying to sell or whatever, I will fill this calculator out and send it to them. And 99% of the time, they can't argue it because it's numbers, right? If I were to try to tell a builder all this stuff over the phone, hey, this is what I did. They may believe you, they may understand, but it's indisputable because it's on paper. It's a calculator. It literally fills out stuff for you. So here's where the most important stuff is, and that's why what I'm about to show you. That's why all the comps are important. So our lot cost. Lot cost. This is what a builder is going to pay for the lot. So this isn't your wholesale. This isn't what you want to lock it up for. We run numbers based on what a builder is going to pay, because you can always work down from there to wholesale. If I know a builder is going to pay 189, guess what? You just have to be under 189. Go lock a deal up for 160, whatever you want. So as long as I know what a builder is going to pay, groovy. I just know we have to be less. So that's why we use the builder's cost in these lot prices. So obviously, again, we're using this example. So we know lots in this area go for, 150 to 200,000. So 189. I wish I had a better answer. I just kind of know. And over time, you just kind of cue in on areas of what stuff's going for. But you can literally plug and play. And so here's the best part about this. This little square down here see how it's green? If you wanted to do 210,000, let's see if a builder is going to pay 210,000. Turns this red. Why does it turn red? Because remember how I mentioned earlier in the episode, builders want a bare minimum of a 20% return. I have met very few builders that want to build something and try to sell it to make 20%. And so we want to be over 20%, which again is why we're at 189,000. Boom. So title and escrow fees, self-explanatory. Final lot price, again, that's your title and escrow fees plus your lot price of what a builder's going to pay, right? So this is what total for the dirt that the builder's going to pay. Now, the build cost. This is why this stuff is important, right? And this is why talking to builders and understanding what their build costs are is extremely, extremely important. So I know most of our builders in this area are building about $200 a square foot, which is why this is 200 and not 400. This is what they're building for. This is what it's going to cost them to build that house. Next is the build size. This is what a builder is going to, the size of the home the builder is going to build. And if you don't know, if you haven't talked to enough builders, you don't have plans from builders, you just don't know, just use very close to what, your comps are showing. That's a good estimate, again, because most of the time they're going to be very similar. So if you see all the homes are selling for about 2,500 square feet, plug in 2,500. And so that's how we get this. So now what this is going to do is it's going to multiply, obviously, your price per square foot times the square foot of the home that the builder is going to build. So that's their build cost. Just again, this is not 100% accurate, right? Everyone's different, but this always helps us get a good understanding of what builders are going to pay, at least kind of what their costs are, what a good ballpark or range is. And then your total all-in cost. So this is what a builder is going to be all in. He buys the dirt, pays the closing cost, does whatever, builds the home. That's what his all-in cost is after he's built the home, bought the dirt, puts it on the market. First day he puts it on the market. So why is this important? Because this is what his break-even number is, right? So now at 432, 780, if a builder becomes less than that, if he has to sell a home less than that, he's not making money, right? And so down here, this is where it filters the average sold comps, so projected sale price. So it's going to filter our average of the comps, average price per square foot, build size. Boom. It's going to put in our build size of our build, and it's going to put out a projected sales price. So that's what a builder can expect to sell that home for on the market based on the comps. I hope everyone's following with that, and I wish if anyone needs help with that, I would love to talk to them off air. If I need to make a phone call or whatever, just DM me, please. I want to help as many people. But this is your projected sales price. So a builder can expect, hey, if I go ahead and list this thing on the market for $590,400, there's a good chance it could sell. But the thing is with builders, what are they going to do? What's any smart investor going to do? They're going to list that for $615,000, right? So that way they built in that the counter. But this is what they can expect to sell that lot at. Closing cost, again, self-explanatory. 6%. Why 6%? It's agent commissions, right? Builders aren't selling new construction homes for the most part. We know someone that does, but for the most part, they're not selling it off market or pre-selling. They're having to pull an agent, and that agent has to go list it on the MLS form. And then they have to pay those fees, right, when they sell that home. So here's where the money is for the builder. A builder is going to project, or at least on this deal specifically, a builder can project if he builds at that price per square foot, that size home, and it sells at that price, he can expect to make a gross of $126,000, right? Which then filters into, we know that's over 20%. I know I kind of ran through that really quickly, and I know if you're scratching your head, I apologize. I've tried to explain that as good as possible, and hopefully looking at this, screenshot the screen. If you're just listening, go on our YouTube. It'll have a video, and it'll physically show you, so you can look at it and see what I'm talking about. If you're only listening. So, Isham, do you have anything you want to poke at, add, question that may help the audience that I'm not thinking of, or?
So, I mean, you broke down our calculator really well. It's just, unfortunately, we don't have this as public information. So I'm not sure, if that's going to be valuable information for you guys, but it's more so just to kind of give you an idea of the different layers, and all the different things that go into evaluating a land deal. And so, look, bottom line is, you hear all the time, land is easier. And frankly, it kind of pisses me off when people say that, just because it's like people saying, hey, like, you can get started in real estate with no money down. It's true. You totally can. It's just very rare. You know what I mean? You need to at least put earnest money down. So it's one of those things where it just sounds better than what it really is. And so, look, guys, like, if you're curious about land, reach out. Love to talk. I'm not in the convincing business. I could care less if we get more competition. If anything, I don't want people doing land, but we're not scarcity minded people. Like, we'd love to help. But please don't do this because you think it's easier. That's a recipe for failure, and you probably shouldn't want to go for the easier thing. If it's something that it just seems challenging, it seems alluring, you want to know, then go for it, by all means. But here's the thing about land, it's not, it's kind of like, a lot of us, when we started, we tried working multiple markets, and then we realized, oh crap, I've spread myself way too thin. I need to focus on a market. It's the same when it comes to, the real estate game. If you're trying to wholesale a house on Monday, a multifamily on Tuesday, and a land deal on Wednesday or Thursday, like, good luck. There's so many different variables to each one of those things. You know what I mean? From the conversation that you have with the seller, to the type of buyer, to the underwriting process. I mean, multifamily alone, that's next level stuff. So I don't want to say land is next level or anything. It's just different. And so if you are primarily focused on residential real estate and a land deal falls in your lap, if you don't want to deal with land, don't deal with it. Just it's not like every single opportunity you get, you have to try and do something with. Get okay with, like, moving on. But if you really want to learn the land game, I mean, this is a brilliant area. It really is. It's totally different. I'm not going to say it's better. It's not. I'm not going to say it's worse, because it's not. It's just different. It really is. The whole saying is, in land, we don't have toilets, tenants, or termites. And it's like, haha, that's funny. But what we do have are transactional sellers. It doesn't matter how good of a salesman you are. If a person has a certain number in mind, you know what I mean? Like, you've got to figure out how to either help get their number down by educating them, or just move on. Whereas, in properties, you're really trying to get that person to just trust you. You know what I mean? To link up and do all that. I mean, if you still want to build trust in land, of course, it's a major issue, but ultimately it just comes down to the numbers. And so for land, valuating your deal is a big deal. I mean, it's a huge deal. On the house side of things, it's a huge deal only in the sense that you want to, you may have to retrade if you lock it up too high. You know what I mean? Like, those things happen kind of earlier on in your business, and eventually you don't have that problem anymore. Land's different. It just is. And so I just wanted to throw that out to you guys. I see Joe's got a question. Are you pricing lots at 10 to 20% of new condition? Tanner, what's your answer to that?
I'm assuming Joe means construction. I hope that's what he means.
New construction.
It's funny, when I first read the comment, I thought it said nutrition. I don't know what. There's no N or U in there, whatever. Anyways, Joe. So it changes per market. So what we see is 10%. Right now, our builders are about 10% of resale value, and that, again, that's for a spec home. And so the biggest indicator, though, is when I shouldn't say indicator. The biggest thing that we have to pay attention to when you're doing it based on a percentage of resale is what's a luxury area, like a luxury market, a luxury neighborhood. Like if you're in one market and there's certain areas that are $1 million, usually that 10% gets thrown out the window, because that's where custom home builders get started coming into play, semi-custom home builders. And so they pay a little more because they have actual clients. And so
quick example. Sorry. There's an area in our market. So we got, Panama City Beach, and you move over to Santa Rosa Beach. And this is up in the panhandle of Florida, where there's this area called 30A. I mean, it's like 10 minutes from Panama City Beach, right? Not far at all. But you have a 1/4 acre lot in Panama City Beach that would probably go for 70 to 80 to maybe 90,000, something like that. You move that 20 minutes over, and that is now a $300,000 lot, and what's funny is they're going to build a $1 million house on it. So if you take the percentage deal and you go with that real rigid, 10 to 20%, whatever, let's just say 10%, because that is, builders typically are about 10% of the sold price is what they're looking to buy land at. Well, you go to this market, $1 million house, you're thinking, 10%, that's what, $100,000, right? Am I saying that right? $100,000, right? You're going to get laughed at. You make a $100,000 offer on a lot in this area. I mean, lots everywhere. That same right across the street just sold for 300, 400,000. So it's tough when you just approach this with the straight up percentage. It really is very, very market specific. Good news is builders love talking about this stuff because they would love the help. They would love someone feeding them deals. So get on the phone with a builder in that area and have a conversation.
Yeah, and I want to give a few just really quick relative examples. So there's a certain place in our market where homes sell for 300,000. Every lot goes for about 30,000, right? 10%. You're like, heck yeah, I figured out the method. And so, but again, like Aisha was saying, you move that same lot over, that price goes up. And so, and a few reasons those prices go up is based on the strategy, the exit strategy. And so for another example, just 30 minutes one way, in our market, a 50 by 65 lot, just like I was showing on the calculator, can go for 150,000, but homes are only selling for 550,000, right? That's way more than 10% of lot value. But why is that? Because a lot of builders in that area are building a home and then selling to investors for short-term rentals because it's close to the beach, right? And so that's why it's also important to understand what type of user is going to be purchasing those builds. And again, you have to factor that in, because the reason that $300,000 homes in one area, builders are buying 30% at 10% of that value, is because they know they're just going to stick maybe a first-time home buyer in that home, and there's no investment strategy behind it. But then again, you go 30 minutes down the coast, and that 30,000 lot turns into a $150,000 lot, even though the homes are selling for 500,000. Again, if you do the math in your head, that's way more than 10%. But that's because an investor is buying that property. And then you go 30 minutes further down where Aisham's talking about, in the 30A region. Holy smokes, good luck. I'm just kidding. It's so, again, small lots, 400,000, and they're building $2 million homes on it. Again, do the math, that's way over 10%. There's even lots that will sell for 450,000, and they're only building $1.4 million homes. Again, way more than 10%. So it's just important to understand the exit strategy on the builder's end, and understanding your market. That's the biggest thing. To keep it simple, understand your market. And that's
Great
really
question,
all I have
by
to
the
add
way.
to that. But whew,
Yeah. We're
let's
at
wrap
an
this up
hour.
because
We are at an hour. I don't want to drag this on. I know if I don't pull Tanner's plug, he'll keep going.
Keep going, baby.
He's a machine. Guys, look, okay, so moving forward, we're going to be doing this every Wednesday, right? We're still not sure on the format of doing this. It's ugly. It's always messy in the beginning. I'm sure it was in your business. We had no clue when we hit live, like when we hit start broadcast, we're like, what's going to happen? Like we we're figuring out, just like, everyone else is as well. And by the way, I don't want us to sound like we've been doing land for years and we've got all this knowledge and experience. We've got quite a, decent amount because we have condensed a massive, we've probably sold 15 to 20 lots in the last few months. Average assignments, 15,000. And so it's, we've done a lot, but we're no experts by any means. And so we will not come on here and tell you something that we are not sure of. And if one of us says something that, we don't think is true, then the other one will chime in. We do it all the time in our business. It's kind of funny. We just want to be transparent. We want to be helpful. There's no ulterior motive. Matter of fact, I tell people all the time, I kind of don't want you sending us lots. Like we have, we have our own acquisition team. We have our own process. If we get sent a lot, it throws us off. Now we have to, go work outside of our CRM and then, bring in this thing. But we just love helping people. We know what it was like for us. It was tough. It really was. It was tough learning this stuff. We're kind of on an island. And so we're like, look, we want to provide a resource for people. Most other land stuff out there is kind of it's courses. You got to pay money. You can't just learn and then, figure it out. So we want to provide a resource for everyone that's out there that's curious about land. Hopefully, again, you're not just looking to, a land deal land on your lap. So, hey, let me go ask these guys and try and sell this and then go right back to houses, kind of make a commitment.
Yeah.
Pick a lane that you want to stay in. Go ahead, Tanner.
That was just the last thing I was going to add is if you're hoping to learn land to do it, I don't want to say part-time, but at least just kind of hoping to quickly, how do I come up with an offer and throw it out? To be honest, we're probably not the best fit. If you're genuinely want to learn the deep dive into land, that's who we are. Again, because our goal is development. We want to build anything and everything. And so that's why we underwrite and evaluate stuff the way we do. So again, if you're looking for someone to hopefully give you just a quick number, a quick offer, sure, we can do that, but I can't promise you it's going to be close. And I just will say straight up, we're probably not the best fit in terms of who you want to learn from. There's a few other wholesale land people you can go to, but our model is pretty unique and pretty different. And we know a few other people, but it's different. But anyways, I need to wrap this up. I know Aisha needs to wrap this up. It's the middle of the workday, so we got other stuff to do. But yeah, this has been fun. Any feedback you guys have, any comments, any questions that you want us to talk about or a topic about land, put it in the comments. Leave a comment, like, subscribe, do whatever. But mostly just leave a comment so we know what you guys are needing to talk about, and we can either go do homework or we can bring up that comment and question on the next episode and talk about it for you. So please feel free to do that.
As of now, every week we'll have some sort of a theme, right? Like today, we really wanted to cover how to determine the value of land because it's the number one question we get. It's the most difficult thing to explain. And so we wanted to take the bulk of our time to really kind of just nerd out and dive into this. And I'm sure that a lot of people's eyes are glazing over when they're hearing all this info because it's a lot. It's like drinking from a fire hydrant. It's a lot, but have no fear. Know that we're going to be here. We're here, but we're going to be here every week live. Jump in. If you got a question, do like Joe. Is it Joe? Do like Joe did, and throw your question in there. If you want to get some clarification on what we're saying, we're live. Let's go. Hey, what do you think, Tanner? What do you think about throwing Pappas's info out there? You cool with that?
Yeah, I'm totally game.
Okay, so Mavro Academy, did I spell it right? ACADMY. Yeah, MavroAcademy.com. guys, so there's a gentleman in Arizona. His name's Anthony Pappas. Anthony is a G. He was like the land goat for us when we first got started. And he's a guy, I mean, his first year, he did like we had him on our podcast, Wholesale Elite. I think he did 1.3 his first year, 1.5 his second year. One of the guys on his team did $250,000 just, in assignments one year. So he knows his stuff. And ironically, his approach is the same as ours, where he looks for infill lots and he sells it to builders. And he's built a massive business doing that, in one market. So now he's ready to branch out to other markets, and his team is huge. It's 4 people, huge team, and he's crushing it. So that's a joke. It's really not a big team, but it doesn't take a lot of cold call. It doesn't take a ton of leads. This is a completely different thing. It doesn't take a ton of money. You don't need a dialer. You don't need any of this stuff. You can literally drive for dollars. Literally use that GIS map, use a property appraiser's map, look around, look for little squares with trees all over it or no house. Odds are if it's in a neighborhood, that's an infill lot. Click on it, see the owner's names, put that person's name in a true people search, get their info, call them, ask them if they're open to selling. Then yes, they are open to selling. Cool. Tell me about the utilities. Any survey done? Great. You have a price, any price in mind that you're looking to get? Okay, cool. Well, let me call you. Let me get to work and do a little bit more research, and I'll call you back with an offer. Call them back, make that offer, and then go from there. You don't have to overcomplicate this stuff. You really don't. If you do want to learn land more, then I would highly, highly, highly advise you to go to this course. It's free, mavroacademy.com. It's free. It's super free. There's no, you go in here and it's free, but at the end, there's no ads. There's nothing. Anthony is a G. He literally paid a lot of money in production to put this thing together. And he's a really good teacher. He's a guy who can take, what Tanner would take 3 hours and condense it into about 8 minutes. So I love busting Tanner's chops. Anyways, so mavroacademy.com is a great resource. We're probably not going to promote that much on this show just because we want to kind of keep things in our ecosystem. But we also want to let you guys know there's a phenomenal resource out there through Anthony. We trust him like crazy. He's a good guy to follow. And so with that being said, mavroacademy.com is a great resource. So guys, we're going to be here every Wednesday, 12 o'clock my time. I'm in Alaska all the way to 4 o'clock Eastern time. So we may not go an hour every time, but we're here for you. Yeah. We're here for you. Throw in some questions in the comments. If you're watching this after the live, that's fine. Still drop questions in, whether you're on YouTube or Facebook. We will scour those questions. If it's something we can answer right then and there, then great. But if it's a really good question, we'll still answer it right then and there, but we'll put it on the show too and kind of really deep dive. And so thank you guys so much for joining us on our first, live episode. They will get better. Bear with us. And yeah, I happy hunting for you guys. I wish you all the best. What you got, Tanner?
That's it. Let's get back to work, but no, just kidding. Anyways, just like, subscribe, comment if you have any questions so we can put it into the next show ahead of time. And stay tuned for the next episode of the Wholesale Elite as well, which comes out every Monday. If you want to learn, or at least listen to high level, successful, real estate entrepreneurs, people that make a lot of money in real estate, whether it's from wholesale, whatever, you want to tune in.
Or people that are just getting started and they've done 3 or 4 deals and they're fresh and they can tell you what's happened. We've got it all. Yeah.
So just that comes out every Wednesday or every Monday. This comes out every Wednesday. That comes out every Monday. So again, like, subscribe. You'll want to tune in. But outside of that,
smash that like button.
I am out.
We're supposed to say that. Smash that like button.
Yeah,
peace out, guys.
But yeah, see you.
What up, Elite fan? That's a wrap for today's episode. But look, if you got value out of the show today, do us a huge favor and give us a review or give us a like or subscribe. Do all the things to help us get the word out there. And look, we want to see you on the next show. So get out there and crush it, make it happen. Stay tuned for the next episode. Peace.